There we go. Hey, I am Andrew Miller, and this is Connect Skagit. It's an opportunity for us to get to know each other and learn a little bit more about everything that's going on in our magic Skagit. And I am joined today with my good friend, Rebecca Larsen, who I have known forever from Helping Hands Food Bank. She's currently at Helping Hands Food Bank. And you will refer to her as Rebecca, and I will call her Becky, as I have known her since our days at LaVenture Middle School 150 years ago when we settled Skagit Valley, right?
Exactly.
Becky, tell us a little bit about yourself. Talk to us about your journey. How did you get here?
Well, it really does start back with my grandparents, the Dutch. They moved into the Skagit Valley in this part of the world. And so they came here from Holland. And so I was born and raised in Skagit County. I'm a twin. So when we were born, it was really exciting. We actually made the newspaper, which feels weird now. Yay, twins. I did go to Mount Vernon High School. It was a good time of my life. I felt very connected to sports and music and not so much grades, but that's a whole nother thing. And we really had a really great group of people growing up that I still know. And, my best friends are still my best friends.
Yeah, Truth in Advertising. Becky and I were classmates.
94
Bulldogs. There you have it. Special class.
And, I almost remember, did we both get most likely to go in the military, or was
probably something like
that? I saw myself doing something bigger and greater than just being here and being myself. So I did go to college at Skagit, played softball on a scholarship for a year, and decided that, there's more out there. I didn't know. I don't really question the how, I just do it. And when I feel motivated to do something, I usually start looking into it. So I went to the recruiter and he said, well, we don't need women right now, but if you want to try, go ahead and try. And I got in 95.
So that was the Air Force.
Yeah, that was the Air Force.
Wow, blue
and baby. I couldn't pick my job. Back now you can pick your job, but the only job they had open was for an F-16 mechanic, and I got a 0 on my mechanic ASVAB, so there was no way I'd be involved with all the planes like dropping out of the sky. So I said, no, I just want to go in and see where I end up. Well, I ended up in as basically working with fighter pilots and their resource management, and it was an opportunity. We went all over the world. Turkey, Saudi Arabia. I was active during Bosnia and Italy, and it was just a really good place for me to grow. I have 4 older brothers, so I was pretty shy and not the leader by any means. In sports, I was always kind of the quiet one in the back, and but the first day I got into basic training, my instructor, who I'm still friends with, said, you're my leader, you're going to lead this group. And it started me down a path that I was born to do. Didn't know it until that very moment that was something that came so easy to me. So fast forward 11 years, I got out of the military due to, I wanted to really be with my son. They were going to send me away for a year without him to Korea. And I couldn't. And I didn't question the how at the time. I just said, you know what, this service is over. I'm going to someday serve my community in a different way. And so when I came back to Skagit, of course.
Now you say of course, but what brought you back? I mean, were you up in Alaska, or was that your last duty station? Yeah.
Texas was actually my last duty station.
Okay.
And what the funny thing is, throughout my career, even in Saudi Arabia, things kept coming back to remind me of Skagit. So I'm sitting there and Double Jeopardy, that movie, had come out and it hadn't hit the movie theater yet. And we're sitting there and I'm watching it going, wow, that opening scene looks so familiar, until it said Island County. And I'm like, whoa, this is my home. And I met people from when I landed in Turkey. The guy in processing was a a 94 grad. And then I met other people from other places, and it was just everything I've ever done. There were bits and pieces that reminded me of home. Even
Mm-hmm.
in Italy looks just like the Skagit County, at least where I was. So it was always there. And I always knew that um, as I was getting out, I wrote what the main things I wanted to do with a career. And it was to be a supervisor, mentor, and coach. I wanted to do good for my community and something with food. And I put it in an envelope, and I didn't reopen the envelope till about a year before I got this job. So it would have been like 9 years later. I opened it up, and it's weird to think now that that's exactly what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put food bank executive director. I had no idea you could work in a food bank. And so, but knowing at least the basics of what feeds my soul, managing and coaching people, being there for them, I have to do something in the community, and food is so basic. It's so, you can't nobody can function. The president can't function without it. And then the person we consider the most needy can't function without it. So it kind of normalizes life a little bit.
Right. So you had two of the three real, critical elements really of what was going to happen next, right? You knew what you kind of wanted to do, and you knew where you wanted to do it. But like so many of us that hop off active duty without that clear path before us, how was it that you really landed at the food bank? What was the series of fortunate happenstance?
Fortunate.
Yeah,
So
that got you there.
So my first job was working for a trucking company in a warehouse as a dock supervisor. I was the first woman that they really wanted to grow into as a terminal manager, and because of my background in the military. And
Well, yeah, if you can boss fighter pilots around, I think you probably have a leg
I
up
was working with Teamsters. Yeah,
and
it was the
truckers.
same thing, right?
Well, for the record, as a recovering intelligence officer, yeah, I used to joke about. I just tell fighter pilots they're just the bus drivers, right? They
Right.
drop what we say when we say it, and then they go back to the bar and do their
Yep.
things.
They do this.
Yep, that's it.
Um, and so I worked in the warehouse and distributing all kinds. Our main client was Boeing, moving freight around. And so again, I think I needed that to understand the logistics of how food moves, So now
Mhm.
I know how moving freight in the world is the same. It doesn't matter what it is. It just has to do what it's all the same. So giving me that background I needed for this job so that I could do inventory, transportation, logistics.
Well, and
And then,
what's your study strategy? Professional study logistics, right? If you really
yeah.
win, so here you are, you're up to your neck in it.
Yeah, so I think that the military gave me the hats. I wore every single hat in the facility, being at one point I was the highest ranking enlisted because it was all officers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to do everything. And so that gave me the ability to wear 1,000 hats at one time.
Yeah.
The logistics gave me the idea of how to make it all move and seamlessly look like it's perfect because it's all working together. And then I went and worked with Sickle Steel, again, working with crane operators, mostly at the refinery. And then I'm a disabled vet. So my shoulders and arthritis were just too much to handle anymore. And so the Veterans Administration said that they would like to cross train me. So I was in the process of cross training into being an ultrasound tech, which I thought would be fun. I mean, I could do that for the rest of my life. And then one day, I don't know why, I just was searching job listings and this came up. And as the operations manager, I wasn't going to run it. I was just going to manage it. And um, of course, I interviewed. Of course, I hit that out of the park. They called me that day as I was walking out the door, going, "It's yours if you want it." And I walked in that first day in April of 2015, and in my brain, I literally said, "I'm home." Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever been to a job where you say, "I'm home," but that's really what it felt like. And there are so many challenges, but I think that when you're doing something that it's not even, it's more like a calling. I know pastors use that a lot, but I think there's other places like nurses and doctors and firemen that consider their job a calling, like they have to do it. And it's a good have to. It's not like, oh God, I have to do it. But I knew that I was made for something more than just, working at a desk. Not that that's not a bad thing, but this is definitely where I opened up that envelope and said, this is the how. It only took me 10 years to get to the how, but this is how I'm going to be part of my community, manage people, coach people, and also work with food. So
Right.
and really make an impact. So long story short.
No, that's fantastic. How is it that, so you go from operations to the executive director? Is that just, you just continue to fail forward as fast as you could? What I know in our community, it can be a challenge to find those leadership roles. We just don't, there aren't as many. And it seems like this is really your trajectory as a leader really is directly correlated to the success of Helping Hands. And I'll say that so that you don't have to, but I know the first time that I came out and toured your facility, when in my transition back to the Valley, and it was in a different place and it was in a different, but the vibe was the same, right? You were definitely, you're going to succeed or die trying. Right.
Yeah.
Because the why was so big, you kind of figure you had the how figured out, but help me see, and it doesn't have to be, and I want to hear the humble brag really about how it is that you grew, you saw the opportunity, really stepped in and did it in a way that's consistent with our values in our community. I think that's another thing where when I look at organizations that are doing very well and are well supported by the community, there's a theme there. And so help me unpack that. How is it that you've been able to really take your journey and use your experiences to get Helping Hands to the next level?
So I was the first true employee. They had contractors and things like that. And there was a transition already there. First day I walked in, oh, by the way, we're going to move to a new building. Don't know who, what, where, when, and why, but you're going to have to do it. Literally as I was walking in the door. And so a long time ago when I was young, my grandpa, who, was fully Dutch when he came to Kansas, is where he got his first job, said, if you really want a job, and it may not exist, like it's your job to build your own job and make sure that people look at you like, well, yeah, of course, this person is the person to take us to the next level. So honestly, I've tried to do that my whole life, where I've gone to interviews where I said, yeah, that's not the position for me, but this is what I've seen. I've done the research. This is what you guys really need. And they've come back and said, well, we can't afford it now, but the next year they were hiring for that position that I had recommended. So I'm not afraid of doing the research and looking into what people really need and telling them and pushing it. So when I took over as the operations manager, I just worked our tail off you have to make yourself relevant, right? So we had to have more clients. We had to have better quality of food. We had to have everything so that the client or the person that we're serving, they feel like, wow, this is incredible. Like, I can't believe that this is happening. And I've got a lot of people, their feedback. And then as we were discussing the next level, my business mentor, John Janicki, and I had a long conversation about, the next step can't just be doing the same thing we used to do. I used to hate that as a supervisor in the military. Why do we do something? We've always done it. So we
There's
really
an SOP for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yay. Let's not change. But I started talking to the clients about, well, why are you here? What brought you here today? And they had a laundry list of, my tire blew out. And then why did you have to come to the food bank? Well, I don't have any money to one tire. Mm-hmm. Or my husband lost his job because it was accident that happened on the job. So there's 1,000 reasons why people use the food bank. And I'm thinking, well, why are we getting bigger? Because we're putting a Band-Aid on everything. Why are we not trying to solve, well, let me find someone to give you a tire, then you don't have to come back, so there's and the community is so generous, and I could ask anybody right now, hey, I need a tire for someone so they can get to work, and I would find someone in 2 seconds. That's just how generous this community is. And so we explored the idea of, well, yeah, let's keep feeding people, but is there something, John goes, is there something more that you want to do, Becky? And
But
I'm
the
like,
key here is that's not really what you were hired to do, right? You were hired.
no,
Right. No, and I
no.
think that's part of, I think, what is a huge, there's a huge opportunity certainly across the Skagit Valley and the county for that type of leadership. But you just immersed yourself in the need, and then had a board really that was visionary enough to say, hey, look, Becky's the full-time person on the ground there.
Yep.
Let's and you had
support that.
Right. And to build in, to say, okay, here's the need. Let's build an organization around, instead of how can we just move more food faster. Right.
And that was a really deep, long conversation with them, is like potato shed in the field or a solution center that is really powerful. And we probably sat for 3 or 4 or more hours just deciding. This was scary. It's scary from going from what to something that you don't even, there's no proof of it. I don't know if this ever been done before. And
no risk it,
again,
no biscuit, right? That's the way we were raised.
and why are we fearing? I think fear is what holds you back in all life. So if you don't fear the how, don't fear it, and you embrace it, and you say, well, you build a really, really strong team around you, and you say, as long as we're going to do this together, let's jump off the cliff together, holding hands, singing, we're doing this, right?
Right.
And so I had to say in a board meeting one time, and I will never forget this, timeout. Are we doing this or not?
Yeah.
We're done talking about the pros and cons of each side, because this train is going, and we either have to jump off and be who we are for the rest of our lives, or we move forward and we accept the fact that we're going to be forward thinking, we are going to be solution based and not just hands out. And all of them looked at me with this fear in their eyes and said, we trust you.
Right.
Let's do it. And I have got a lot of backlash from other organizations saying, why are you doing this? Why? And I said, we're doing it. You can't, we're a nonprofit. We get to do what we want to do as long as it's inside our mission and the IRS and our, it's not against the law.
Right.
But if I want to change my name, if I want to do something different, then guess what? We're going to do it. And I think it pushes other people to be better. When I'm hoping there's other organizations out there that say, you know what, we need to stay up. We need to keep relevant. We need to keep pushing forward and thinking. That's the only way for us to get through. We didn't know there was a pandemic coming, of course, but to push through any hard time, when donors are low, when food is low, when the need is skyrocketed, how do you push through and make sure that you're relevant?
Right. Talk to me a little bit about your transition. You go from this superpower in logistics and calling the ball with very ego-driven individuals or leaders, and then you get thrown into, or really not thrown into, you jump in all the way in to running a food bank, and then you come up with a vision and a plan for something that's completely different, and your board says, great, now go fund it. Right. I mean, and that's, talk to me a little bit about your transition, or at least how did you add that skill set? I mean, it's an adjacent, any leader needs resources, right? But yeah. How did you get into that? What was your experience, again, personally, and then professionally, and then working with the community to build the building? And I mean, that's a project in and of itself. I don't know of a nonprofit that's been able to bite off as much, excusing the pun, to do what you do. Walk us through how that happened.
So one of the things that I feel like I that's been a good thing is that I'm not a trained executive director. So my college and training doesn't come as this is what you say, this is what you do. It's more like it's being genuine. So I ask advice and then people help. So, and it's something that they do train that. You go to someone, and I went to John Janicki and said, hey, you're an architect by trade. Can you please help me? And I wasn't looking for money. I was looking for, what, as a stakeholder in the community, what should we do? And I don't even know where to begin. And so he gave me a bunch of different resources, and an architect, an engineer. He gave me someone to help me walk through the construction process. But he also helped me develop the strength to tell people that, no, we're not just going to hand out food anymore, because the minute I told them job training, education, where we're going to move people out of it, it was like a light bulb of, why do nonprofits get so big doing the same thing versus, can we put ourselves out of business someday? Because, and you look at that, you look across the board for nonprofits, a lot of them are getting bigger, but not necessarily solving the reasons why whatever they're serving is still happening.
Yeah.
Not to say people don't, but there's very few that hand over the keys to the building and say, hey, we're done. We have solved hunger. Here you go.
Right.
Which it might be a while, but that's our goal. And so always have someone on your side. So,
now, so the mentorship that you received from John, that's because he was on your board?
No, he was just a community member who had a stake. He had a stake in it, and they've been donors forever, but not at this level. And actually, they've never done anything at this level as a family and an organization. And I knew that this was going to be big when he started to use the word we. So we want to do this, we want to do that, as a we meaning him and helping hands.
Yeah.
And, we have partners. I have a donor, Robert Gates, and him and I had a long conversation about what dignity looks like, being veterans. And he's so passionate about.
Was Robert Gates sec def while you were in?
Yes.
Isn't that so funny?
I was like, I had to memorize your name.
For Sergeant Larsen. Yeah, that's pretty funny. And now you're talking to him in a completely different level.
Right.
I had a similar experience where it's like, oh, wait a sec, your picture was on the wall in a building I used to walk past all the time.
And I memorized your name in basic training when you're doing your chain of command. And yep, he was right
yeah.
there.
And now
I said, that's weird.
Different level, and an alternate universe that we call home.
So I think that me not really understanding where boundaries are with people, and taught like, this is how you talk to donors, and John has brought that up many times, as your genuineness comes across as, not that you don't know what you're doing, but it's so genuine. And I know that when you say something, you're going to do it. He goes, you're one of two people that I trust to start a project and end a project.
Right.
He goes, for someone who knows everybody, two people that he goes, I can trust to like start it and end it. And he goes, and
authenticity is so, I think authenticity is a secret in the sauce of our entire valley. The things that we do really well are absolutely driven by our authenticity. So, and
you throw ego out the door, and you say, so my ego is my community. So I do get upset. We call it poke the bear, when I feel like someone's trying to hurt Skagit County as a whole, and especially those that don't really have a voice. Those families that are coming to the food bank and they're getting the food and they're working really hard don't necessarily have the time to go to Olympia and talk about why they're there.
Right.
So I do get a little upset when someone says, no, we're not going to give you food and Skagit County is going to go hungry. And it's like, no. But when it's me, it's like, I want to make sure that I'm willing to do anything it takes to make sure that those people here have the quality and quantity that they deserve, because food is not a luxury. Food is, if it was an emergency, flooding, dam broke, whatever, we'd be serving everybody. We'd be serving the rich. We'd be serving those that are less, that are needy. And so to me, I think about that every day. And I think it's luckily I'm not professionally trained. Not that professionally trained executive directors can't do the job just as well. It's worked for me to be very, 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 very transparent and say, I just need advice on how you would do this.
Right.
And I do get encouragement every month. I send Robert Gates kind of a quick update, and he gives me such hope and such he thanks me he in a way that's like, why are you thanking me? I'm thanking you.
Right. So you got a rather august advisory board here. The people that you reach out to, I mean, John Janicki and Robert Gates, and I know a lot of other people in the community.
And I
That
think
doesn't
it's
happen on accident, right? I mean, you
no,
with your authenticity and your humility, and we need to use that word because it really sounds like that's what you're able to show up with, to say, I have a mission that we agree on, and that creates that connectivity. And I think that's a huge opportunity. And I know you get strength from that. Our community is stronger because of our connections, without a doubt. And that is huge, and certainly something that is a large part of your success at Helping Hands. Talk to me a little bit about the expanding universe of goodness that is created around Helping Hands, because it's not and you and I had talked about this a couple of years ago. It's like, is it a solution center? Is it because hunger is a challenge that requires a solution set? It's not a push a button, get a can of food type thing, because that would be too easy, right? It's not a there are logistics challenges, there are marketing challenges, there are messaging, all that stuff that goes into it. So talk to me a little about how you were able to take a rather static show up and fill your trunk with food and drive off, and maybe because I know there was a lot that went into really getting at the heart of when people left, if they left with food and they left with shame that your organization had failed.
right.
And I think when early you and I chatted about that, to me, that again was, I agree. I could not agree with you more. We want people to be fed and encouraged, not kind of slink away with free food in their trunk and not have to tell anybody. And I think you've been able to create a message and a mission and an organization around that. Help us understand how that came about.
So in the old facility, our docks were different sizes, and I would stand up on the dock while I was watching, just because I could see everybody. It was like a bird's eye view, just to make sure everybody was moving. And I would see the homeless, I'd see families, I'd see people in uniforms from Best Buy and Walmart, and even tire stores and Janicki Industries. And so and CNAs would come through in their uniforms, and I'm watching all these people going, how do you get to this point? We were a part of the Gleaners. So I came from a big family. We needed help. So we went to the Gleaners that's what I remember when I was young. And I don't think we ever went to a food bank, but I started to ask the question, why? And why are you here? And I started making connections with people, and people will open up and tell you just about anything if you come to them with, I want to solve a problem, and I need your help. I'm why would someone like you come here? And they said, well, and again, they give you that laundry list of things. And so that's what I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't sleep. It wasn't yay, we fed 1,400 families on my first Thanksgiving. It was, why are they still here? Like, I'm trying to figure out why, as a nonprofit, is our mission to just do what the basic thing is, or is it to really solve why that basic thing is happening? I didn't even realize that the food banks didn't start until the 80s. And so I thought they were around forever, and some of them started in the 70s, but they haven't been around forever, not especially at this scale. This is really new at this scale. So when we started to talk about the new facility, I'm like, you guys, we need to have more connection. We need to slow the shopping process down so it's not like a herd of people walking by getting food. Let's open up for a grocery store. Let's make it beautiful so that people want to come. Let's not put a sign on the building so people don't even know what it's there. Let's give people a reason to get up and take a shower, so they aren't walking through this dark line and just getting food put at them, and they're making choices. And so it was just a development of what would you do? Everybody, you get to go to the grocery store and pick out your choices, and it's beautiful. I don't know what grocery store you go to, but if you go to all of them, they specifically set it up pretty because you want to spend more time there. And I don't want them to spend money because they're not buying it, but I also want them to look at the signs, connect with our other resources, talk to people, figure out what is other things can help them resolve their issues. So it was a development of almost like a guilt that we're just handing food, but we're getting bigger, to we need to switch that, because that could really weigh on someone. If I felt guilty every time a family had to come to the food bank, long term, that's not healthy for an organization. So if we're leaning towards solving the issue of why you're there, I feel like that was more of a positive, more of a growth potential, and the right thing to do. So it was, nobody wants to come to the food bank. These are choice. Literally nobody has ever said, oh, I wanted to come today, even though I have $100 in my bank account I can buy groceries with. I have to do this because it's just my bills don't, it equals in the negative by the time I'm done at the end of the month.
Right.
So.
I think a lot of people might be surprised to hear how much resistance that you've faced. I mean, I think everybody can, I know I sure was, think, oh, it's just like America and apple pie and helping your neighbor. And yet you have, both personally and as an organization, seen a lot of resistance. Help unpack that for us. How did that go down, and what kind of surprised you about that?
Well, when you're talking about stakeholders or board members or staff members, it's really like, I can't figure out the how. It just seems like too much work. And that's when it's like, well, you may not have the ability to do that, but we will find someone. It's kind of like when I called WSDA during COVID and I said, we need more. And their response to me was, this is all we can do. And it made me silent. Like, then call someone else. Like,
Right.
it's not your job to do more than what you're supposed to be doing or what you're trained to do. So find the next person. America is so smart. There's so many smart people so I always tell people, okay, staff, yes, this is a big one, but if we need help, there's other people that can help us. Don't stop a process because you're scared of your abilities.
Right. And then
If we
in the
need
COVID
more,
challenge, you literally had to call out the National Guard to help people
exactly.
meet the need, right?
Yeah. And I wasn't scared to. There's other counties that said, no, we're not. And they're not at our level because they don't have that help. And so part of it was understanding change. Volunteers that have been doing this for 30 years. I spent 2 years talking to them about how great it's going to be and how wonderful it is and how beautiful. They walk in the door and hate it all. I had board members that really, really questioned, why don't we just do it the easy way and continue what we're doing? And I'm like, nothing amazing was ever easy.
Right.
It's easy to just, you know how easy my life would be is if I just did the same pattern as we did one day a week open, and that's it.
Right.
I mean, my life would be so much easier, but would Skagit County be stronger? Would other organizations like Lake Stevens is building a food bank with the same kind of stuff going on? And an organization in Georgia called me and they're wondering, how did you build this food bank like this? And so,
right. In terms of innovation, I mean, for a non-government public services, the level of innovation that you've been able to bring about in such a short time is no small miracle, right? I really do think. I mean, we talk about things being so there's ordinary. That the key to being extraordinary is doing the extraordinary, right? It's in the word,
yeah,
extraordinary. It's the extra to the ordinary. And I think you just have this unrelenting discontentedness for the ordinary, right? It's just not good enough for your ordinary is not good enough for our community. And you've been able to build a team and a mission and an organization and really a coalition of I will say powerful people, right?
Yeah.
People who are able to and powerful in that they're able to bring resources and policy to bear to help you on your mission. And that's been I think extraordinary. That's certainly I'd say that that's a gold star on everything that you've done here.
Thank you. Well, looking at the organizations that have kind of called me out and said, why are you doing this? It's so easy, again, to just kind of do the thing that everybody's been doing and just kind of plugging away. But Skagit County is this incubator of awesomeness that just, I feel like we could do it better and solve problems because we're kind of small, but not super small. And then take that and move it in other places and say, we flushed it all out. I had 1,700 donors build that building. I have about 2,000 new donors this year that have helped us. Our budget was for 450,000. We hit over $1 million because of COVID, and there's money, a little bit of money to spare, so that, I mean, people just came out. $19,000 was from the government for food.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Of
$250,000
budget, 19,000 was from the government.
Now, we did get some for equipment. We got some for like gloves and things like boxes and things like that. So there are things, but food, when you're talking about the thing that you need the most, $19,000.
Wow.
So the community, over 2,000 new people stepped up and said, here you go. And there's not one other. I've talked to a lot of the EDs for food banks in the state. None of them had that. I mean, Whatcom County got $600,000 from their county just for food. And I'm like, and not that our county is wrong, because they put their money towards other things, but it's amazing the community support that we have. So I honestly feel like if I came up with a crazy idea to do something, if it filled a gap, if it was innovative, if it helped people, I'd get the support I needed anytime, because people are really willing to put themselves out there to help. And it's mind-boggling when you go to the mail and there's this many checks.
Yeah.
There's 110 checks sitting in there with money, and they're thanking us.
Right.
There's handwritten notes that say, thank you for making this community stronger. And it's so empowering to see that what we are doing is seen. I feel like that girl that's like, they see us for who we are, like all we want to do is support this community, and Skagit is crazy supportive.
Right. Well, and you've created a platform. And so what's next for Helping Hands?
So we are working on, Anacortes 100 closed, permanently.
And that was a food bank?
Yep.
Okay.
And out in Anacortes. And so right now the National Guard is doing a pop-up distribution every Wednesday. So our goal, we've been talking to the city about they had in the plans, they were working on a community center for Anacortes that housed a bunch of stuff. And they put a pause a little bit on it, but doing something like that, like a solution center that has not just a food bank, but maybe some laundry. Some of the things they're missing out there is job training. So if someone wants to work on resumes, they have a place, a laptop kind of lab, things like that. So we've been working with the other agencies out there to find out what the gap is out in Anacortes. It's definitely DSHS. They only get them to come out twice a year. We can bring them out every day. So we're just working on building another facility out in Anacortes, but we don't know what that's going to look like, because we're in the research stage, finding out what is really needed out in Anacortes. But we have a lot of people that are really excited about helping us. The other thing is we are we've had this idea for a mobile food bank. It's literally a bus that drives around and can go in any neighborhood. There's a food bank on the inside. So you walk in, you go to the food bank, and you walk out. And it could go for emergencies. If there was something that happened in a town, it could just pull up and be handing out food. Then it could go to some of the smaller communities that maybe not need a brick and mortar, or so in Mount Vernon, there's one brick and mortar area. If we could do it, go to different communities and neighborhoods. So that's something we really want to develop and work on. And advocacy. So the food system, there's a huge gap in the food system. I had a refinery person on my board of directors for a couple years, and he was in charge of emergency preparedness, and they had no food plan. Like, they have water,
Yeah.
but no food plan. And so there's a huge gap. The WSDA said there's no big warehouses full of food. I'm like, are you kidding? Yes, there are. There are big warehouses full of restaurant food that the restaurants aren't using. And that's how we were starting to get some of our bulk stuff, is going to those warehouses. So I mentioned to the governor's kind of aide or team that each county needs like a food person, either a czar or someone that deals with all of the emergency food and really works hard on coming up with plans. We have no plan. So all of this is because me and my staff come up with these plans. There's nobody telling us. We could have closed and nobody would have been able to tell us any different. So everything we're doing is we're building the plane as it flies. When Whatcom County closed, they took our plans and reopened under our plans, because we don't have the oversight of anybody. We haven't even had the health department come down and say they trust us and we work with them, but with no true guidance except for what guidance comes out for like restaurants and things like that. I've been waiting for them to go, okay, Becky, do this, do that, do this. And it's just not going to happen. So they love the idea of having, and we've been invited to the governor's office when this kind of starts to die down, to come up with what is an emergency plan for Washington? What is an emergency plan for Skagit County for food?
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to some of the colonels and the generals from the National Guard about, there's an easy way to call up CERT trained folks that only hand out food. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, because the National Guard's not going to be here forever. And so there has to be a thought process on food. Where do we get it? Who's going to pay for it? And how do we distribute it? We could have closed and said, we're not doing food.
Right.
The governor, the office of the governor in Washington State is leaning on the food banks to be essential, but the resources aren't there. And they're just hoping, like one person said, what would we do if all the food banks just closed? Who would serve the 80,000 people that we're going to serve this month? Who would have served the almost 600,000 people that we served this year so far? Like, that's a reality. If something happened to our facility, these people still have to get fed. Right. What if something happened to us and my team? People still have to get fed. So I think for me and the food bank, we want to make sure we actually hired another body to kind of take over my day-to-day stuff so that I can work on more advocacy, emergency planning, stuff at a higher level. Because if Skagit County right now got a huge emergency, not a slow burn like a pandemic, but something big, and infrastructure came down, so grocery stores came down and things like that, there's no true plan of how to feed your family. And then, you've been into countries probably that have had kind of a food crisis. I know I have. And stealing, looting, bullying, stealing, selling, we've all seen that on the news, and that's just one thing we want to avoid totally.
Oh, totally.
So
yeah. Well, so what's next for Rebecca Larsen? Want to eat?
I don't know. So my husband asked me that same question. He's my most trusted advisor. And I said, I feel the same feeling when they told me I had to build a building. I feel like, and I didn't quite know how, I feel like I'm right there again. So I feel like something is there, it's coming, and I just need to follow my path and do the training I want to do and get ready and the strategic planning that I want to do, because I feel like there's the next levels coming, but I don't know exactly what that means. I'm getting ready to write my 4 things that I'd like to do when I grow up.
Yes.
And it would probably include policy making. It would probably include continuing to change the philosophy on what it means to serve those that are less fortunate. And just, I don't know exactly what's next, but I don't like to make plans. I know this sounds crazy, but because I feel like when you make plans, you miss out on something better. Like, I'm going to do this, but then over here is something that you should have been doing that the universe really wants you to do, but you're over here going, nope, this is what I'm going to do. So I kind of leave my,
Yeah, President Eisenhower said, plans are useless. Planning is everything, right? So it's about going through the process, which you're
yep.
certainly have
And
decades.
I know as this dies down that we're going to be getting a lot of requests to be there, to be at the table, and I just want to be ready and prepared. So we hired some more staff. They're getting training to alleviate some of the pressure and the day-to-day stuff so that we can move forward. And my board 100% unanimously believes that that's going to happen too. That
Right.
somebody's going to come calling and they're going to say, we need helping hands to be the forward thinking when it comes to food and what's going to happen next. And so
Well, I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would definitely tell you that the right and left of whatever's coming for you is going to be more good for more people. And I am certainly grateful to you for the fantastic work that you've been able to champion at the food bank or at Helping Hands, not just the food bank, for our entire community. And I want to thank you for that. And
well, the biggest thing as a leader, surround yourself with the best people. And even if someone says, well, are you sure that person is the right person? Go with your gut, because my team would literally stand in front of a bullet for me. And I was thinking about it today because I'm on vacation for the last 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, I know that we're going to do it because we know Becky would have wanted us to do it. Even if I'm not there, it's not chaos and they're not changing things. They're going, this is what Becky would want, and we're going to do that. And so I feel like you are the perfect leader when your team can kind of function without you.
Oh yeah.
But they still think about you in the decision making, and they don't worry about it. They're not worried that I'm going to come down and be mad at them. So I surround with my surrounded team, the people that I have, I trust 100%. They're family. And that's the only way I look good is because they make me look good.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Well, and I know being a veteran and coming out of that culture, and then also being a bulldog for life, we don't exactly, we're not the best at these celebrations. Really, of it's part of duty, and I think that's a huge part of who we are and what we do. And I just want to thank you on behalf of a grateful community, right?
Thank you, Andrew,
for the work that you do, and really excited to see what happens next and where you and whatever team that you build and whatever coalitions come to your aid. And I think that's a huge part of being bold, and the universe will respond. And that's
yep.
the case where you're at, but not for lack of character and commitment on your part, and certainly courage and creativity. It's all there. And what a great story.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to send the team out with before we sign off?
Yeah, I think, again, don't fear the how. Get rid of the how in your head and the fear. I always tell people when they say, I'm scared to do something. And I always said, fear and excitement live next door in your brain. Just open the right door. Don't worry about what is someone going to do? Say no? What does no do to you? No one's stabbing you. No one's pushing you down a cliff. Just be extra, and always put others first. The service before self, when I learned that in the military, I don't know why, it's like in my blood. It's like, that's what would be written on my heart, is service before self. And it's not that I'm neglecting myself, but I look at those children that we serve, and that's our future.
Right.
That's our president. That is our people standing there, and they have to be served so that they can get to that great point. So just don't be afraid of everything, and we will be amazing.
There you go. There you have it. All right, Becky, thank you so much. Chatting with Rebecca Larsen from the Helping Hands Food Bank and other things, Solution Center. I'll call it what it is all the way. And for our very first episode of Connect Skagit. Again, I'm doing this podcast because when I was running for PUD commissioner, I had a chance to talk to so many people, and I got so much energy and excitement really from the conversations that I had. And I love podcasts, and just because it's a way that we can kind of do a deep dive on so many things that are happening in our community. And so I want to thank Becky for making time for us and for sharing the story. Where would you direct people to find out more about the Helping Hands, and how can they find out more about joining your team and helping where it is that you're taking?
Well, definitely follow us on Facebook, Helping Hands, and then www.helpinghandsfoodbank.org. And don't be afraid to share your thoughts. It is our 35th anniversary this year, and we've got some really cool videos out on YouTube. You can go on our website. You can follow it to our YouTube channel. But when things pop in your head, please share them with us, because you never know. I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas, and some of those ideas are where we're at right now, because I feel like when I get an idea, it's like the universe telling me you need to follow that. So when other people get ideas, if it's something about us, share it with me. I'd love to hear it. Because only us together can make each other strong. So yeah, please follow us on our Facebook, because it's kind of fun. Everybody says it's pretty good. So
There you
and my
go.
team does a great job. So
All
thank you,
right.
Andrew.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm Andrew Miller with Connect Skagit, and you can follow us and share this podcast, and we'll all get better the more that we know about each other. So a lot of benefit from that. So thank you so much, Becky, and everyone for listening.